Sign it, Jabari. Don't you dare make a scene in front of all these people.
80 guests, crystal champagne flutes, chandeliers throwing gold light across white tablecloths, a 6-tier cake with his name written in frosting, and his wife, burgundy gown, practiced smile, walking the full length of that table, slow, deliberate, dropping a thick manila envelope right in front of him. He looked up at her, completely calm. "What is this, Nia?"
Your real birthday gift. It's been over for a long time. You just refuse to see it.
You sure about this?
More sure than I've ever been in my life. Sign it.
He held her gaze for one long second. Then, without a single word, reached inside his jacket and pulled out his own pen. Nia's face cracked.
You already had a pen ready?
I've been ready for this moment a lot longer than you think.
He signed, slow, steady, not one tremor in his hand, set the pen down, looked her dead in the eyes, and smiled. Not broken, not bitter, not angry. Deeply, terrifyingly certain, like a man who won before the game even started.
Thank you, Nia. This is the most meaningful gift you've ever given me.
The room went stone silent. Her mother froze. Her sister's phone dropped to her side. Every single guest stopped breathing at the same moment. And on Nia's face, no triumph, no relief, pure fear. Because nobody in that room understood yet. Not her family, not those 80 guests, not even Nia herself. That Jabari Knox had known this moment was coming for 9 months. And what he was about to do next had already been prepared long before she ever walked to that table. Jabari Knox was 38 years old, and he believed one thing above everything else. A man who builds with his hands can also build with his mind, if he is patient enough to stay quiet long enough to finish the plan. He had a solid marriage, a career that kept Atlanta's skyline rising, one beam at a time, and a wife who, 12 years ago, had looked at him like he was the only man in the room. Then, on the night of his 38th birthday, she handed him divorce papers in front of 80 people and called it a gift. But here is what nobody in that restaurant understood yet. Jabari Knox had known that moment was coming for 9 months, and he had been ready for far longer than that. It was a Thursday evening in late September, and Atlanta was doing what Atlanta does in early fall, offering a cool breeze just long enough to make you believe summer was finished, then reminding you by 7 o'clock that it very much was not. The restaurant was Nikolai's Roof on Peachtree Center Avenue in Midtown Atlanta, the kind of place where chandeliers throw soft gold light across white tablecloths, where the waitstaff speak in unhurried tones, and where the menu costs more than most people's car payments. Nia had insisted on it. "Only the best for your birthday, baby," she had said 3 weeks earlier, placing her hand on his forearm with the practiced warmth of someone performing affection rather than feeling it. Jabari had nodded and said, "Whatever makes you happy." He meant that differently than she understood it. By 7:30, the private dining room was full. 80 guests, co-workers, neighbors, cousins, and a generous gathering of people Jabari barely knew. The centerpieces were elaborate. The champagne flutes were already filled. Near the window stood a 6-tier cake with his name written in gold frosting. Jabari sat at the head of the table in a charcoal suit he had pressed himself that morning. He looked comfortable, completely calm. His construction foreman, Marcus, leaned over and said under his breath, "Man, your wife went all out. You must have done something right." Jabari smiled gently. she certainly did go all out. Across the room, Mia stood near the bar in a deep burgundy gown. Her mother, Vivian Reeves, sat 3 seats down in an emerald silk blouse, already holding court, already ensuring everyone within 20 feet knew whose family had made this evening possible. Tiana, Nia's older sister, was laughing too loudly at nothing in particular, phone raised and recording. Jermaine, the brother-in-law, was turned sideways, showing someone photos of a car he'd apparently just leased, his voice carrying the confidence of a man who has never once been genuinely embarrassed. Jabari watched them all. He reached for his water glass, took a slow sip, and waited. The dinner progressed the way these evenings do. Toasts mostly about the people giving them, food that was genuinely excellent, and a low hum of conversation filling the room like warm air. Jabari laughed at the right moments, thanked people graciously, and kept his expression open and unhurried. Then, just before the cake was brought out, Nia rose from her chair. The room quieted. She smoothed the front of her gown and smiled the way she used to smile when they were first dating. Warm, bright, the kind of smile that made a room tilt slightly in her direction. She reached beneath the table. She lifted a thick manila envelope, and she walked it slowly, deliberately, the full length of the table to where her husband sat. "Jabari," she said, her voice ringing clear across the silent room. "I think today is the perfect day for you to receive your real gift." She set the envelope in front of him. For 1/2 second, the room held its breath. Then Vivian began clapping, loud, enthusiastic, thoroughly self-satisfied. "That's right, baby. I fully support you." Tiana threw her head back laughing, phone swinging upward. "You're finally free of this man. No more pretending to be my wife material when you've already moved on." Jermaine leaned back, with the expression of someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment. Even the hardest workers get humbled eventually. 80 people stared at Jabari Knox, waiting. He opened the envelope without hurry, read the first page with the calm attention of a man reviewing a work permit. Then he reached into his jacket for his own pen, the one he kept clipped there every single day, and signed the divorce papers in front of every person in that room. Slowly, deliberately, without a tremor in his hand. He set the pen down, looked up, and smiled. Not a broken smile, not a forced one, a quiet, deeply certain smile. "Thank you," he said softly, "for the most meaningful birthday gift I've ever received." The laughter died instantly. Vivian glanced at her daughter. Tiana's phone lowered. Jermaine's grin flickered and failed. Jabari let the silence sit for 3 seconds. Then he looked slowly around the table and spoke just loudly enough for the entire room to hear. "You should enjoy this moment." A pause, because it will not last very long. Whispers rolled through the restaurant. Nobody laughed, nobody moved. And nobody in that room, not the waitstaff, not the 80 guests, not Nia herself, had any idea what was about to happen next. Stay with us, because what Jabari reveals in the next few minutes is the moment everything in that room changes forever. To understand why Jabari Knox smiled at that table, you need to understand the 12 years that came before it. That smile did not come from nowhere. It came from a long time of watching, waiting, and choosing silence when every part of him wanted to speak. Jabari and Nia had met at a community event in Vine City when they were both in their mid-20s. She was starting her real estate license. He was completing his journeyman certification in structural construction. They married 2 years later at Greater Piney Grove Baptist Church on Cascade Road, with 35 guests, a rented reception hall, and a wedding cake Jabari's grandmother had made herself. Those early years were genuinely good. Jabari worked on major development projects across Atlanta, expansion work at Ponce City Market, commercial builds throughout Midtown, residential developments out towards Stonecrest. skilled, respected on every job site, and disciplined with money in a way most people his age were not. Nia built her real estate career steadily. They were a team. For a while, they felt like one. But somewhere around year 4, things began to shift. What happened to Nia was not sudden. Psychologists describe it as social comparison drift, the slow process by which a person recalibrates their sense of worth based on the people around them. Nia's new professional circle wore different clothes and spoke about their husbands in terms of titles and income brackets. Without any single conscious decision, she began measuring Jabari against that new standard. She did not fall out of love overnight. She was gradually taught, by her environment and, most powerfully, by her own family, that what she had was no longer enough. The Reeves family had always carried social ambition not built from genuine achievement, but from the desperate need to appear achieved. Vivian Reeves had raised her children to believe appearances were everything. The comments started small and never really stopped. One Thanksgiving at Vivian's house on Niski Lake Road, Jabari arrived after a long shift, showered, changed, carrying a peach cobbler he had made from scratch. Vivian looked him over at the door. "You still working on that same site? How long does it take to build one building?" She paused and gestured toward the hallway. My daughter, deserves more than a man who comes home smelling like concrete every night." Jabari handed her the cobbler. "Happy Thanksgiving, Vivian." She set it on the counter without looking at it. For Vivian's own birthday, Jabari had stayed up late to bake a cake, boxed carefully, tied with a ribbon. Vivian stared at it. "How much money do you even make, showing up here trying to act fancy?" Tiana laughed from the couch without looking up. Jabari set the cake on the table, said, "Enjoy it," and walked back to his truck. He sat in the driveway for a few minutes, not crying, just breathing, just deciding once again that silence was the stronger choice. What the Reeves family was practicing has a name: status-based contempt. And it does not simply wound the person it targets. Repeated over years, it gradually reshapes how everyone around them sees that person too. Nia watched her mother dismiss Jabari at every gathering. She watched her siblings laugh. And slowly, the frame her family built around him became the frame through which she saw him as well. What made Jabari different was that he refused to let it redefine him. He knew who he was. That knowledge, quiet, internal, requiring no one's confirmation, was the foundation of everything that followed. Jermaine made a point of finding Jabari at every family event. "Men need to learn how to climb higher instead of staying in the same lane forever," he said at a 4th of July cookout near Utoy Creek Park, watching Jabari manage the grill. "No offense, man." Jabari turned a rack of ribs. "None taken." He had learned that responding only gave them more material. Silence gave them nothing. Then, 9 months before the birthday dinner, the ground shifted permanently. It was a Tuesday evening in January, gray and wet, the kind of Atlanta rain that settles in and stays. Jabari had left the job site early due to a weather delay and driven to Nia's office building on Peachtree Street, carrying takeout from a Caribbean restaurant on Auburn Avenue that she loved. In the parking garage, he saw her car. Beside it, a black BMW he did not recognize. Polished, the kind driven by someone who wants to be seen in it. He saw Nia walking toward it. He saw the man who stepped around to open the door for her. Bryson Tate. Jabari had met Bryson twice at real estate networking events. He was the kind of man who wore his suit like a performance, expensive, pressed, and working hard to project confidence he had not quite earned. Jabari sat in his truck while rain hammered the concrete above him. The takeout on the passenger seat went cold. He pressed his fist once against the steering wheel, hard, and did not notice right away that the edge had cut his knuckle. He sat there for a long time. What separates Jabari's story from so many others is what he chose to do next. The instinct in that moment, physiologically, emotionally, is to act immediately. Psychologists call it reactive aggression, the urge to confront, to demand, to make the pain visible right now. It feels like strength. But acting impulsively, inside a family system already primed to weaponize any emotional reaction, would have handed everyone else every advantage. He understood this. So instead, he chose strategic patience, delaying action until careful preparation could make it decisive and complete.
He did not suppress his pain. He redirected it.
That night, Jabari drove home, walked through the front door, and found Nia on the couch. "How was your day?" he asked. "Fine, busy." "Glad you made it home safe. It's raining hard out there." That was all. For 9 months, he said nothing unusual, questioned nothing openly. He allowed Nia to spend freely. Boutique trips through Buckhead, weekend travel, jewelry, dinners. He never commented. Because every transaction was being documented, and while Nia was spending, Jabari was building. He moved his income into properly structured LLCs. He purchased rental properties in appreciating neighborhoods: Westview, the West End, Pittsburgh. He kept clean records of every asset that qualified as legally separate property under Georgia law.
3 months before the birthday dinner, he mentioned casually at a Sunday family meal,
"I have a few investments performing well right now." The Reeves family laughed. Jermaine nearly choked. Vivian rolled her eyes. Tiana shook her head slowly. Jabari said nothing. He watched the brief, involuntary flash of greed cross their faces, there and gone in an instant, covered quickly by laughter. And he understood something new. They had not merely disrespected him, they had completely stopped paying attention to him. Contempt makes people careless. When you have decided someone is beneath you, you stop accounting for them. You assume the outcome because you have already written the story in your own mind. The Reeves family had handed Jabari his greatest strategic advantage, freely, consistently, across 12 years. Because the most dangerous person in any room is rarely the loudest one. It is the one everyone has already decided is not worth watching. Before we continue, one question. If you discovered your partner had been unfaithful for 9 months, would you confront them the same night? Or go silent and prepare the way Jabari did? Drop your answer below. 2 or 3 words is enough. Confront right away. Stay quiet. Depends entirely. Or, if something in this story reminded you of your own life, a marriage, someone you loved who was quietly taken for granted, share it. Your story matters, and you may be the reason someone else tonight feels a little less alone. After Jabari signed those divorce papers, and the last echo of laughter faded from the room, something shifted. You could feel it before anything happened. It was the way he moved. He did not push back his chair the way a man does when he has been broken by a moment. He rose slowly, with intention, with weight, with permanence. At 6'2", built by years of physical work, he had a natural presence even in silence. Standing at the head of that table in his charcoal suit, he was something the room had not prepared for. Completely, terrifyingly calm. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out his phone, and walked to the A/V panel near the far wall. He had asked the event coordinator to set up the projection system 3 days in advance, describing it as a birthday tribute he wanted to share. The coordinator had been happy to help. A large screen descended from the ceiling. Jabari connected his phone. The room went stone silent. The first image appeared. Nia and Bryson Tate walking side by side through the lobby of a hotel in Miami. The timestamp read 8 months earlier. Nia was laughing, her fingers laced through his. She was wearing the bracelet Jabari had given her for their 11th wedding anniversary. Someone nearby made a sharp, involuntary sound. Nia's hand, resting on the back of her chair, went completely still. The second image appeared. Screenshots of private messages. Timestamps, terms of endearment, meeting arrangements. the specific casualness of two people who believed they were invisible. Bryson's contact name in Nia's phone read Keisha M., a detail so casually deceptive it made several guests visibly wince. Then came the documentation. Flight records from Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, a hotel booking in New Orleans, a private dinner reservation at Arnaud's restaurant on Bourbon Street, a weekend at the Windsor Court Hotel. Time-stamped photographs spanning 9 months. All of it preserved, organized, and now displayed on a 6-foot screen in front of 80 people. The room was not whispering. It was simply watching. Nia's face had drained of all color. Her champagne flute trembled. Vivian pushed back from the table and stood, pointing across the room. "You are invading her privacy. My wife raised this girl to be better than this situation you are trying to create. You have no right." Jabari turned and looked at her.
His expression was almost gentle.
"I have documentation of a 9-month affair," he said evenly, "and evidence that all of you encouraged this divorce because you believed you could claim assets hidden behind a construction worker's paycheck." He let that sit. Then he opened a live video call on his phone. The screen switched to a new image. An older man at a desk, composed, organized. Jabari's financial manager. "As of this week," the man said calmly, "Mr. Knox holds 7 documented rental properties across multiple LLC structures in Fulton and DeKalb counties. Monthly passive income from these holdings currently exceeds $12,000. The full portfolio is available for legal review." He paused. "Everything is in order." The call ended. Here is what any outside observer would have noticed in that room. The laughter, which had filled the space with such certainty just minutes earlier, did not fade gradually. It collapsed. All at once, like a structure whose support has been removed. This is what psychologists describe as a status reversal, a sudden, public reordering of perceived hierarchy. The people who had arranged this evening to confirm their superiority found themselves exposed as having fundamentally misread the situation they believed they controlled. When a long-held narrative collapses in public, the mind struggles to reorganize quickly enough to maintain composure. That is exactly what the room witnessed next. Germain's confident grin switched off. Not slowly, all at once. He sat back with the look of a man doing rapid calculations and finding no answer he wanted. Vivian sat back down. Her legs simply made the decision for her. Tiana had stopped recording entirely. Phone in her lap, eyes fixed on the tablecloth. Then Jabari turned toward Tiana. He simply looked at her. The way you look at someone when you already know everything you are about to say and are simply choosing your moment. "Last week," he said quietly, "you sent me a private message. You offered to work with me during the divorce proceedings, help me protect assets your sister was unaware of, in exchange for a percentage." The table detonated. Nia's head snapped toward her sister. "What? That is completely false!" Tiana pushed back immediately, both palms flat on the table. "He manufactured those—" Jabari had already pulled up his phone. The messages appeared on the projection screen. Tiana's name, her number, her exact words time-stamped in her own phrasing. Unmistakable. The Reeves family turned on each other the way families do when the story they have built together suddenly collapses, and everyone needs someone else to be the cause. Vivian's voice rose at Tiana. Nia was on her feet, tears moving in dark lines down her face, pointing at her sister. Germain argued with everyone at once, demanding they collect themselves and leave, as if leaving could reverse what had already been displayed on a screen in front of 80 witnesses. And through every moment of it, Jabari Knox stood quietly at the front of the room. Not angry, not triumphant, simply present. The stillness of a man who had done the work, held the line, and was now watching consequences arrange themselves exactly as he had anticipated. Near the back of the room, a figure had been growing very still. Bryson Tate, seated near the exit, edging quietly toward the door. Jabari noticed without turning his head. It was a job site skill, tracking the whole floor while appearing to watch only one corner. "Don't leave yet, Bryson," Jabari said clearly. Bryson stopped. "You should stay and hear the rest." Bryson turned around slowly. The polished confidence, the practiced ease, all of it was gone. What remained was simply a man who was, for the first time that evening, genuinely afraid. Betrayal rarely originates with one person acting alone. It develops inside a system, a network of people who each contribute something: encouragement, justification, silence, or simply the ongoing message that the person being betrayed does not deserve better. The Reeves family had been that system for 12 years. They had not forced Nia's choices, but they had built the environment in which those choices felt acceptable. And systems built on collective contempt are stable only as long as the person they target remains unaware. The moment that person has been watching, documenting, and preparing, the entire structure collapses at once. What Jabari's legal team uncovers in the days that follow will take this story from a painful public moment into territory no one in the Reeves family ever anticipated. 2 days after the birthday dinner, the Reeves family was still trying to convince itself that things were not as catastrophic as they appeared. They were wrong. Things were considerably worse. On a Friday morning, Nia's divorce attorney, Patricia Hull, practicing out of an office on West Peachtree Street, sat across from her client with a thick document folder and the expression lawyers wear when delivering news a client is not prepared to receive. She slid the first page across the table. Nia looked at it, then looked at it more carefully, then made a sound that was not quite a word. Jabari Knox had not 7 properties, as his financial manager had stated at the party. He had 9. The additional 2 had been acquired through a separate holding company, visible only upon complete forensic disclosure. Multiple LLCs. Passive rental income exceeding $12,000 per month. Private investment accounts growing quietly for years. Total documented portfolio value, approximately $2.8 million. And almost every asset was legally classified as separate property under Georgia law. Premarital accounts, LLC structured holdings, investment portfolio. All of it shielded and untouchable through the divorce. After 12 years of marriage, Nia Reeves was legally entitled to approximately $48,000 in equity from the marital home. Nothing more. Patricia Hull folded her hands on the closed folder. "I want you to understand clearly what we are working with," she said. "There is a well-documented pattern at work here. Psychologists sometimes call it the entitlement illusion. The assumption that participation in a relationship guarantees a proportional share of whatever was built alongside it. Nia and her family had assumed Jabari's labor was modest, the outcome settled in their favor. The sudden discovery that none of those assumptions were accurate required them to acknowledge all at once that the story they had told about Jabari and about themselves had been wrong from the very beginning. Destabilized people tend to make their worst decisions next, and that is precisely what followed. Jermaine, who had been making loud statements about the family's anticipated windfall, sat alone in his home office in Lithonia, staring at his expensive watch for a long time without speaking. Tiana locked herself in her apartment off Cascade Road, caught between shame over what she had attempted and anxiety about what else Jabari intended to do with those messages. The dream the Reeves family had been quietly nurturing had evaporated completely. But Jabari was not finished. 3 weeks before the birthday dinner, his attorney, Gerald Osei, operating out of a firm on Marietta Street in downtown Atlanta, had initiated a forensic review of all shared marital financial accounts, thorough by design. and it found something that had been carefully concealed. 8 months earlier, Nia and Bryson Tate had allegedly submitted transfer documents for a duplex in Atlanta's Old Fourth Ward, assessed at $420,000, attempting to move ownership into a holding entity connected to Bryson's real estate business before the divorce became official. Those documents carried Jabari Knox's signature. Jabari Knox had never signed them. Gerald Osai presented the forensic comparison to Jabari one Wednesday evening. Jabari studied both documents for about 30 seconds. Then he looked up. "What do we do with this?" "We deliver it to the district attorney's office," Gerald said. "Every document, every email chain, every electronic timestamp. Your 9 months of organized records are exactly what makes this case viable." He paused. "This is no longer a civil matter. This is potential criminal fraud." Jabari nodded. "Then let's make sure the DA has everything they need." The filing reached the Fulton County District Attorney's office the following Thursday. That evening, Jabari's phone rang repeatedly. He did not answer for a long time. When he finally did, he listened while Nia's voice came apart on the other end. Not calculated, not managed, but the raw voice of someone who had fully grasped the weight of what she had set in motion. "Please, Jabari, I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you. Please don't let this go further. We can talk about this." He listened until she finished. Then, after a long silence, "You chose this path yourselves." He ended the call. Across the city, Bryson Tate was making the kind of decision that happens when fear completely overrides judgment. Bryson was many things: polished, opportunistic, but not someone who handled genuine risk with composure. The moment legal consequences became concrete and personal, his loyalty to Nia dissolved without hesitation. He sat in his apartment with a recording device. "I did not sign up for this," he said into the camera, his voice unsteady. "My wife, she is not even my wife. She told me her husband was nothing. She said there was nothing to worry about. I am not going to carry this alone." Whether the recording was leaked intentionally or simply left where the wrong person could find it, no one could say for certain. What was certain was that by the following morning it had spread to Atlanta social media, local gossip pages, and the kind of group chats where people forward things with a note saying they heard it from someone else. Bryson was mocked widely for his cowardice. But the more substantial damage fell on Nia. The woman who had arrived at that birthday dinner as the architect of her own liberation was now being discussed across Atlanta's professional networks as someone who had carried on a long affair with a man who, the moment things became serious, put her on camera and walked away. Former clients stopped returning calls. Professional contacts became unavailable. Her name, built carefully over years in Atlanta's real estate market, now returned a very different set of results. One final observation worth making here, from the outside looking in. What Jabari did was not revenge in the conventional sense. He documented a fraud, reported it to the appropriate authorities, and allowed the legal system to respond as designed. The consequences that followed were not driven by his anger. They were the natural result of choices that Nia, Bryson, and the Reeves family had made freely. Choices Jabari had simply been careful enough, patient enough, and prepared enough to document. There is a meaningful difference between a person who engineers someone's destruction out of spite and a person who simply refuses to protect someone from the consequences of their own decisions. Jabari had not destroyed anyone. He had simply stepped out of the way. And sometimes, that is the most powerful thing a person can do. What happens 3 days later, when the Reeves family shows up at Jabari's front door, is the moment this story stops being about betrayal and becomes something else entirely. 3 days after the Fulton County DA filing, on a gray Saturday morning, a car pulled slowly up to Jabari's apartment building in Buckhead. Then a second car pulled up behind it. Vivian Reeves stepped out first, not in the emerald silk blouse, not with the posture of a woman who has arranged every room around her to confirm her own importance. She was wearing a plain dark coat, moving toward the entrance the way people move when something heavy has settled on their shoulders and will not lift. Tiana followed, then Jermaine, who stood on the sidewalk studying the front door with the expression of a man who has no prepared strategy for what is about to happen. Jabari saw them from his window, coffee made, book on the table, unhurried. He walked to the door and opened it before they knocked. He stood in the doorway and looked at the three of them. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Vivian Reeves lowered herself to her knees on the hallway floor. She reached for his hands. "I'm sorry," she said. Her voice was fractured in a way that had nothing performed about it. "I was wrong about you. I was wrong for years, and I am sorry." Beside her, Tiana went to her knees. She was crying the way people cry when shame is genuine and there is no angle left to work. "I went behind my own sister's back because I thought I could benefit from it," she said. "I am ashamed of what I did." Jermaine stayed on his feet, but his head was down. He could not meet Jabari's eyes. From Jermaine Reeves, that alone said more than most speeches. Jabari stood in the doorway and thought about peach cobblers set on counters without a word of thanks. Birthday cakes left untouched. About 12 years of being evaluated against a standard he had never agreed to. About a parking garage in January and 9 months of silence and building. He breathed. Then he gave them a condition. "Stand up," he said quietly. They stood. What Jabari offered in that hallway was not obligation. Legally, he owed these people nothing. What he chose to do reflected something researchers describe as restorative accountability. The understanding that genuine repair after serious harm requires not just private acknowledgement, but public recognition. Not punishment, clarity. A clear statement made by the people responsible in a form that cannot later be privately minimized. He was not asking for their suffering. He was asking for their honesty. "I will consider helping Naya find a path forward," he said. "Not as a gift, not because anything is forgotten, but because I don't need her destroyed to consider myself free. I was already free." He looked at each of them in turn. "Before anything else, all three of you will record a public apology video. Not private, public. Posted from your real accounts under your real names. You will say plainly that for 12 years you disrespected me because of my profession and your assumptions about what a man who works with his hands is worth. Clearly, without qualification." The hallway was very quiet. "After that, if Naya needs financial help to rebuild, I will provide it as a documented business loan. Market rate interest, full legal contracts. Nothing informal." "That's the condition?" Vivian whispered. "That's the condition," Jabari said. The apology video went up the following Tuesday. All three of them together, seated in Vivian's living room on Niski Lake Road, using their real names, saying the words without softening them. "We disrespected Jabari Knox for 12 years because of his profession and our own assumptions about what his work was worth. We were wrong. We are ashamed of how we treated him." Atlanta's community received it seriously. People talked not just about one family's story, but about something larger. The damage done when families measure worth by titles and appearances. The specific harm of treating honest labor as something beneath dignity. Nia lost her position at her real estate firm within the month. The combination of the affair, the fraud investigation, and the collapse of her professional reputation proved too much to survive. She moved back into her mother's home on Niski Lake Road. Jermaine lost 2 business partnerships when the companies involved quietly moved on. He became noticeably quieter in the months that followed. Tiana drifted to the edges of family life, present at gatherings but peripheral, carrying the particular isolation of someone whose betrayal of a sibling had not been forgotten by anyone in the room, including herself. The Reeves family had spent years operating on the belief that social positioning was protection. They learned, at considerable cost, that armor built on contempt is not armor at all. Money can purchase apologies. It can briefly purchase obedience. But it cannot restore the dignity of a man you spent 12 years deciding was not worth respecting. That is something you cannot buy back. What Jabari does with his freedom in the months that follow is the most important chapter of this story, and it has nothing to do with settling scores. 6 months after the birthday dinner, Jabari Knox closed on a house in Buckhead. Not an apartment, a proper house. Wide front porch, 2 old oak trees throwing shade across the yard in the late afternoon, and a porch swing he had found at an estate sale on Howell Mill Road and hung himself on a Saturday morning, with Marcus helping and a cooler between them on the lawn. The swing creaked when he sat in it. He decided to leave it that way. He did not buy the house to prove anything. He bought it because he wanted a porch where he could watch the Atlanta evenings settle through the trees, and because he had earned that kind of quiet with a patience most people never have to develop. But the story of Jabari Knox did not end with what he built for himself. It continued in what he chose to build for others. He had watched too many young men in Atlanta make strategic errors, not failures of character, but failures of preparation. Working hard without building, earning without protecting, staying in relationships that had quietly communicated for years that their contributions were worth less than they were. So he started showing up. On Tuesday evenings, he drove to a community center in the West End and sat across folding tables from young men navigating construction careers, financial confusion, and the particular exhaustion of being consistently underestimated. He talked about LLC structures, rental property acquisition, the difference between income and accumulated wealth. He pointed to specific neighborhoods, Westview, Pittsburgh, the West End corridor, where a disciplined person with a construction background and a clear financial plan could build something real and lasting. He talked about silence, not the silence of a man who is absorbed too much, the deliberate quiet of someone who knows exactly what they are building and understands that announcing it early only gives others time to undermine it. The young men listened. Some had already heard his story. Atlanta has the memory of a small town, even inside a large city. One evening, a young man named Deshaun, 24, working finish carpentry, trying to purchase his first investment property, asked him directly, "How did you stay quiet for 9 months, knowing what you knew? How did you not just react?" Jabari thought about it honestly. Because reacting immediately would have cost me everything I had spent years building, he said. When someone disrespects you and you respond right away, with anger, with anything explosive, you hand them control of the narrative. You become the story. They become the person responding to you, instead of the person who created the situation. He shook his head slightly. I decided the facts were going to speak for themselves. I just had to make sure they were fully prepared when the moment came. Deshaun wrote something down in the small notebook he always brought. Psychologists who study post-traumatic growth consistently find that the key variable is not the absence of pain. It is what a person decides to do with it. Jabari had experienced real pain. 12 years of accumulated disrespect. A betrayal that required months of silent endurance to navigate. A marriage that had slowly become unrecognizable. And he had taken all of it and built something that helped people he had never met. That is not a small thing. One evening in late spring, Marcus stopped by with 2 coffees from a place on Peachtree Road and nothing specific to discuss, which was the kind of company both men preferred. They sat on the porch swing together. It creaked comfortably. The oak trees moved in the warm Atlanta air. After a while, Marcus asked, "You ever regret any of it? The whole year of staying quiet?" Jabari held his coffee with both hands. "Not the strategy," he said, "but the years before that year. The times I saw what was happening and told myself it wasn't worth addressing. Those I wish I had spent differently. Not fighting, just being more honest with myself about what I was actually seeing. He looked out at the yard. The lesson isn't only about waiting. It's about seeing clearly.
Recognizing who people are and making decisions based on truth instead of the version of them you keep hoping they'll eventually become.
Marcus nodded and said nothing, which was the right response. The swing creaked. The evening settled over the yard like something warm and permanent. This story leaves us with 4 lessons worth sitting with, the kind you'd share over a second cup of coffee with someone you actually trust. First, disrespect repeated without consequence becomes permission. The moment someone dismisses you and nothing changes, they will do it again. Not out of cruelty necessarily, but because you taught them it was allowed. The correction is not an argument. It is a boundary, stated once, clearly, and then enforced by what you do next. Second, documentation is not paranoia.
It is self-respect made practical. If you have a son or grandson in a difficult marriage, tell him this: keep records, dates, accounts, agreements, assets. Not because he expects the worst, but because a prepared man is never at the mercy of someone else's version of events. Third, the most dangerous response to betrayal is the one you make before you have finished thinking. Jabari's 9 months of silence was not weakness. It was the difference between losing everything in an emotional moment and recovering everything through a strategic one. Next time you feel the urge to react immediately to something that has wounded you, write it down first. Put it in a drawer. Wait 3 days. Then decide. Fourth, contempt costs the person who carries it more than the person it targets. Vivian, Tiana, and Jermaine spent 12 years looking down and ended up on their knees on a hallway floor. The man they dismissed quietly built a life they could not touch. The Reeves family arrived at Jabari's door on their knees. He had already risen long before they got there. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Written by a human with AI as companion. It hopes to leave you with a warm feeling that even when wrongly treated or looked down upon, there are still people and good things quietly standing on your side. Production team, story and screenplay by Quinn Fung. Character development and visual conceptualization by Chris Nguyen. Video scripting and scene adaptation by David Nguyen. A passionate team dedicated to bringing this story to life.